Here's what I want you guys to do. So for this one, we're going to multiply or divide integers. Okay? So the first one, we're going to take a negative number and a positive number. So give me a negative number. -6. Okay? And then we are going to multiply by a positive number. Give me a positive number.
5.
Sure. So on the calculator, 6 times 5. What do you get? -30. Yeah? That's what you guys got? Okay. Now, let's look at another example. Again, I want a negative number times a positive number. So give me a negative number. So -8 times, give me a positive number. 2. What's -8 times 2? -16, right? Okay, so here's the thing. If I tell you right now that the weather outside is 16 degrees, you're going to go outside without your jacket. But technically outside is -16. You're going to like me then? No. So I won't like you guys if you tell me it's positive or it's negative. Because there is a big, huge difference. There is a 32 points difference. Okay? So when the answer is negative, make sure that you say it the negative because it means a totally different number than the actual number. Okay? And this is what I tell my students. This is like one of my examples. Like, okay, 20 and -20, they're not the same. Right? Yes? That represents that specific number. That. Now, it could be like this. It could be 2 times -8. What are you going to get when you do that? Do it on the calculator. -16. That's still a negative. So the deal is, anytime I multiply a positive number by a negative number, it's going to be a negative. Okay? So the rule is, anytime you multiply or divide a negative and a positive, right? Then you're going to get, the answer is going to be negative. Similar as if I go backward. If I do a positive times a negative, that's also going to be a negative. Okay? So as long as one is a negative number, the other one is a positive number, and you're multiplying them or dividing them, then your answer is going to be negative. Okay? So an example would be, let's say if I have 8 divided by -2. Okay? 8 divided by -2. Is that going to give me a positive answer or a negative answer? -4. Okay? Now, give me 2 positive numbers. 8 times 6. Can you find me the answer for that? 48. Positive? Yeah. So anytime you multiply 2 positive numbers, you're going to end up with a positive number. Okay? Now, give me 2 negative numbers.
-9 and -12.
Okay. Multiply -9 times -12. What do you get? Positive what? Huh? Uh-huh. Let's try 2 other numbers. -4 times -3. What do you get? Positive 12. So when I multiply 2 negative numbers, what am I going to get? A positive. Okay? So in other words, this is how you're going to remember it. If the sign is the same and you're multiplying them, it's going to be positive. If the signs are different, then your answer there is going to be a negative. Okay? I also have them here. So I have negative times negative is positive, positive times negative is negative, negative times positive is negative, positive times positive is positive. So it's already here, but at the same time, you can remember it like this. So a negative times a negative is positive, positive times a positive is positive, so that's the same sign. And if they're different sign, then they're going to be negative. Okay? So sometimes we write things differently, like instead of writing the actual multiplication sign, which is the x, or instead of writing the division, we write them differently a little bit, okay? So if you see two numbers or two things, let's say if you that's the same thing as writing negative 2 times 3. That's also the multiplication, okay? So I can also write it as two brackets. Another way that some people write it could be like if they do this, right? Negative 2 times 3. That's also the same thing, okay? They all are going to give you the same answer, which is negative 6, okay? So if you get brackets, a number bracket the number or whatever, that means you know that it's multiplication. Okay? We are going to talk about BEDMAS later on, right? So be careful when it comes to multiplication, addition, subtraction. BEDMAS is your brackets, exponent, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. The thing is with BEDMAS, if you have other numbers with this, the calculator won't treat them the same. Okay, so you have to be careful. When we get to this, we'll talk about it. Okay. Another way that you can show division of numbers in math is to write them as fraction. Okay, so I can write it as 6 divided by 2 like this, right? But I can also write it as 6 over 2. They mean the same thing. Okay? Again, sometimes the calculator doesn't like it. All right? We can also put multiplication and division together this way. So I can have 6 times 3 divided by 9. Okay? Or I can write it as 6 times 3 divided by 9. Right? In this case, I have both division and multiplication. So
When we're answering these questions, do we have to show you the math that we did to get the division?
like, what do you mean?
Like when you get 6 times 3.
You do find the answer for that,
Yeah.
and then you divide by 9. Yeah, so you have to show that step. Right? Technically, yes. Okay? Because this is where the BEDMAS is.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so if I have this, what does that mean?
Negative times 3.
That's right. That negative, that's technically, it's a negative 1 times 3. It's an invisible 1, right? We don't usually write it, but it's an invisible 1. Okay? When I do -1 times 3, what do I get? A positive times a negative is? It's a negative, right? So that's going to be a -3. So this is the same thing. So if I write it like this, or I write it like this, or I write it like this, that's the same thing. Okay? So when you have a negative in front of the bracket, that's actually -1 multiplied by that number. Okay? And basically that explains right now you know why when I say negative and a negative right after each other, what did we say it becomes? Becomes positive. And the reason for that is when I multiply a negative by a negative, what do I get? A positive. And that's why this right here changes to a +5. I don't usually leave it as 3 minus -5, right? I usually change it to a 3 plus 5. And the reason for that is because when I have negative times negative, that's a positive. Okay? Now, something that I need you guys to remember that whenever you're writing something, right? Let's say this. That negative belongs to the 3. So the sign of the number is before it. Okay? So that's a -3 plus 5. Okay? If I have 3 minus 5, right? So that's a +3 right here, but I don't write that positive. Okay? So you have a 3, and you're taking away 5 from it. Okay? So remember that the sign of something is before it. Okay?
So if it was actually +3 minus -5, then we have to brackets. Because
That's right. If it's that would be 3 minus -5, so then the sign of the 5 is negative. Okay? But they're not the same. These are not the same, right?